And part of how we were able to convince them was a very clever thing that everyone should use, and that is you get school children involved. And we got school children to do artwork around the Bow Bridge, and then they would send their artwork with their letters, you know, written in crayon to the town supervisor. Please, Mr. Mason, please save our beloved Bow Bridge. And he said to me later, he said, Stephen, did you have to get the school children involved? Anyway, it was, but the tide turned. Supervisor Mason ended up being a great advocate for the preservation of the bridge. Here it is when we successfully wrote a $1.2 million grant application on behalf of the county that went along with the demolition money they were going to spend, and it was rehabilitated and reopened to traffic. And like Jay, like Keysville, this was a bridge that's on the town letterhead. It's, you know, on the signs as you go into town. It's a great point of pride for this town. And so, no surprise at the turnout here with the fire department and the trucks crossing the river and tooting their horns and spraying water. And it was just a great celebratory occasion. And this is a bridge that's no longer there, but I love the postcard. Again, here's a postcard with a bridge in it. This is Ausable Forks. But notice with 1910, someone has just seen Halley's Comet, and they're writing it on the front of the postcard. And I love that, everything that's captured in that moment. So as we leave, or almost leave, iron and steel bridges. By the way, the last bunch of bridges we've seen are steel, not wrought and cast iron, which was a much stronger, more agile, really, material. And but the real, you know, biggest, best, most sort of monumental steel bridge in our region was this bridge that I'm sure all of you know, crossing between Crown Point, New York, and Chimney Point, Vermont, the Lake Champlain Bridge, built in 1929. And I wish I should have a slide in here of the fanfare that took place when this bridge was reopened. You would think that the stairway to heaven had been discovered. You know, there were the governors of Vermont and New York. If I say there were 10,000 people there at the ribbon cutting, I think that's a low number, but I can safely say it was 10,000 people. It was a big deal. And, you know, it was a way of connecting two states. It was also a way of kind of opening up New England to New Yorkers. And it's a beautiful, beautiful, unusual truss design. The first of this type to be built in the United States. And the reason it has this kind of deck truss that then becomes an arch and then goes back to a deck truss is because the center had to be high enough to allow certain kinds of ships to pass underneath the bridge unencumbered. And if this had been built 20 years later, that the ships, you know, the masts and stuff would sort of gone by, and the bridge would have been lower. But anyway, it's a great, a wonderful work of American civil engineering. And when it was built, it got a lot of press, not just locally with its opening, but it was featured in a lot of engineering publications because of the achievement that it was. And most of you know that 15 years ago or so, there was a big controversy about the future of the bridge. We had been, for at least 10 years, we'd been trying to goad the Department of Transportation into spending some money on it because we could see that it wasn't being taken care of and was deteriorating. And most of you know it reached the crisis point where the bridge was closed and what happened. But for a while, you know, we were part of the conversation about advocating for its rehabilitation. You know, the bridge that was built in its stead is really a marvelous work of civil engineering. In 40 years, we'll be putting this bridge on the National Register of Historic Places, and we'll be celebrating it as an engineering achievement. And and it really is not, it's beautiful, it's innovative. It also, you know, the arch in the middle, that idea is carried on, is referenced in the design of this bridge. This, by the way, was designed by a guy that grew up in Lake George. Why am I forgetting his name? But anyway, a wonderful, very creative bridge designer. And what I love about the new bridge is it's much more bicycle and pedestrian friendly, so that you can walk across the bridge, and you know, the view out there is to die for. You see Vermont on one side and New York mountains on the other, and you look up and down the lake, and it's marvelous. So, the other big iron bridge in the region, demolished a few years ago, was this 3,000-foot deck truss bridge built over Great Sacandaga Lake in Bachelorville. This was replaced a couple of years ago. But there it is. And interestingly, not the same kind of fight over preserving this bridge, because I don't know why exactly. I don't know why. It's not as innovative. It's not as beautiful. It didn't have a constituency like the Lake Champlain Bridge did. So now, okay, before we haven't left iron. No, so now we're moving to another. We're still in iron, but we're talking about another kind of engineering solution, which is which is a suspension bridge. And so here we see a couple of examples of suspension bridges in the region. They're all pedestrian suspension bridges. The oldest of these is our dear, sweet swing bridge here in Keysville, 1888, built by the Berlin Iron Bridge Company at a cost of about $3,500, built by, I think, the towns of Chesterfield and Ausable. The stone piers that the bridge sits on were built by a local mason. I want to say his name was Albert Musson, but that might have been the upper bridge. And you know, has been a great connector across the river to unite the two sides of the village at a time when most people were getting to work and to home and to visit and to church and to go to the stores on foot. And this was very much a pedestrian village, like every village was. And so Keysville has these three connections across the river to make that kind of foot traffic possible. Two other footbridges in the region. This is in a little community called Wanakina, which is near Cranberry Lake up in St. Lawrence County. This was a bridge, footbridge built in 1902, and it was built by a lumber company, the Rich Lumber Company, that had their operations on two sides of the river and built a little community there. And like in Keysville, they needed the footbridge to allow people to get back and forth to both sides of their operation. And again, like Jay, like Hadley, like Keysville, this is a very beloved bridge. It's on the letterhead of the town and very much celebrated. And then in a bad ice jam in 2014, the bridge was very badly damaged and washed away. Let's see, do I have a picture of it? Well, the picture on the right shows it. But so this community completely got behind rebuilding the bridge. This is a community, by the way, of about, I'm going to guess, 150 people that live there. I mean, it's really, really small. But this was the heart of the community. And they raised, they got some grant money, but they raised a lot of money locally. And I need to insert another slide here, because if you cross the river, there's a kiosk with a big, like 4x8 sheet of plywood on which is mounted a list of every single dime that was raised for the reconstruction of this bridge, including, you know, little Joe and Sally Smith that had a bake sale. They were selling muffins, and they raised $15.25. Every single person who raised money for this was acknowledged, and the list of people is just another row, another column. Just amazing the way this community turned out. And you know, this is so important about you love something, you do the work to make sure it's taken care of, and and so on. So one of the great joys of my work is these random phone calls, or now emails, that we get where somebody brings something to our attention that we've never heard of. And this is the surprise. The day, it doesn't happen every day, and if you've been doing it 27 years, there are fewer surprises than there were 20 years ago. But one day, a guy named Stuart Calkins calls me up and he says, Stephen, have you ever, I got this I got this wonderful camp and over near the Oswegatchie, and there's this bridge that we cross the river with to get to the camp, and I think you should come and take a look at it, you know. And so I did, and you arrive, and there's this privately built pedestrian suspension bridge built just to get across the Oswegatchie to get to this family camp, which was built in 1923. And the Calkins family was came from Watertown. The camp and the bridge has been lovingly taken care of now by 3 generations of this family. In fact, I'm going there next week. We do a tour there. Stuart Calkins, the current patriarch of the family, will show us around. And the pride that this family has in this bridge is just, and their camp is just incredible. And he'll say to the group, I'm sure, he says, you know, every single piece of wood in that bridge has been replaced at least once. And well, of course, he's right, because wood exposed like this to the elements does have a lifespan, but they've been very good about replacing pieces as they needed to be replaced. So this complex is all in the National Register of Historic Places, too. So there's another steel bridge, which we'll see in just a minute, but it should be next, but it's out of order. But then around the turn of the 20th century, another material becomes available to engineers and bridge builders, and that's reinforced concrete. And so beginning in the early 20th century, you start to see bridges being built out of reinforced concrete. Interesting, though, that a lot of them being built in the Adirondacks they're structurally made of reinforced concrete, but they're often faced with stone. And I think that's an acknowledgement that these bridges should be picturesque, often in these beautiful, you know, river settings. And so this is the Bog River Falls Bridge as the Bog River flows into Tupper Lake here. And this, what do I want to say about this? So I'm giving a talk about some version of this talk quite a few years ago in Long Lake, and a woman comes up to me afterwards and she goes, you know, my father built that bridge, and we exchanged contact information, and she sent me these pretty poor quality Xerox photographs of her father, a tall man with a big handlebar mustache wearing overalls, standing up on the bridge just like this, you know, just as proud as can be that he and his men, I think they were all men, were building or had built this bridge. And I love, as you all love, those human stories that connect us to buildings and to places. And these happen all the time if you've got your ears open and you listen. This is another stone-faced concrete arch bridge over the Ausable in Keene, privately built by the Knockman family to get to their summer camp on the other side of the river. You can see this if you ever go into what's called the Keene Valley Country Club, not the Ausable Club, but the Keene Valley Country Club, which is quite a humble institution, and you can go in there and park and wander down the river and see this bridge, which has also been very well taken care of. This is another privately built stone-faced concrete arch bridge in Westport, leading into one of the big estates that's on the Camp Dudley Road. What else? Yeah, this is the one out of order. This is, of course, our wonderful ausable chasm bridge, built 1932 to 33 by a contractor from Hadley, New York, named Burr Stark. This is built, if you can think in your minds of the little ausable chasm bridge with the sidewalk on it, that wasn't replaced until 1932. By that time, imagine all the car and truck traffic going from Albany to Montreal, all having to cross that little one-lane bridge, not just the one-lane bridge, but you know, the bottlenecks there and getting out of Ausable Chasm were just, you know, that's a tough route. And so they bypassed the little bridge, built this steel arch span, 222 feet. I think this is an incredibly beautiful, sensitive work of American civil engineering. The way I say it is that if you have to build a bridge across this beautiful chasm, this is just incredibly sensitive to its scenic location. The way it kind of leaps across the chasm there, and of course the way they used local granite and other stones in the approach spans and the abutments is just really works really well. This is the bridge that was recently replaced in Wilmington, and so those are the concrete arch bridge spans. So that kind of brings us to the present. I talked a little bit about the difficulty in preserving historic bridges, here's an example of a lovely little lightweight bridge that provided access to some camps kind of near the ski jumps in Lake Placid. And beautiful detailing, relatively good condition, but again, it just couldn't carry the weight, the loads that needed to cross it, and so this is what we have today. I can assure you we will never be making postcards out of this bridge and sending them to our loved ones saying, just saw this amazing bridge today. You know, we have bridges have become much more utilitarian, much more run-of-the-mill, and you know, our argument is that there has to be, and as a percentage of our total bridge inventory, historic bridges are just like, you know, 1/10 of 1% or something like that. And our point of view is there has to be some room in our world, in the richest country in creation, to be able to take care of some of these as a way of celebrating our ingenuity and our engineering heritage. And that brings us back home. I'm in real awe of the work that Matt Prey and others have done to raise awareness in this community and beyond about the importance of Keysville's historic bridges, and you know, he's been at it about almost a year, if not a year now, and gotten thousands of signatures and made all kinds of noise in the community and with the legislatures. And you know, the problem still is that the counties have not really budged from their position, which is essentially either some combination of we don't care about these bridges, or we have other higher priorities, or we don't have enough money, or some other complaints. And one of the things that Matt is doing is he's challenging some of the assumptions that are some of the things that are being said. He's finding people who have real expertise in the rehabilitation of these bridges. He's making the case that the cost of rehabilitating them is much lower than the counties say. He's suggesting that there's other sources of money that could be brought in to do projects here. And but so far, the counties have not really budged from their position. And what Matt and organizations like us are really asking is to get out of the way. In other words, take the position of let's see what's possible. In other words, not making a promise, but let's see what's possible. And let's allow the planning office or the grant writing people at Essex and Clinton County to go and see where the money can be found to do this. And I know that is possible if the counties just get out of the way. So if you're not a friend of Keysville's Historic Bridges on Facebook, you should like them so you get there, so that you see their posts. But I want to also acknowledge that everything in life, or almost everything in life, is ephemeral. You know, nothing